The 2025 Singapore Grand Prix is just around the corner, and there are three reasons why you cannot miss it. The first one is the improved performance of the Red Bull RB21, which allowed Max Verstappen to close the gap in the championship standings. He is now the fan favorite, and people want him to win. We'll talk about that. The second reason is how Oscar Piastri, the lead McLaren in the championship standings, is going to respond after the disaster that happened in the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix just the previous race weekend. He needs to respond. And the third reason is the battle between McLaren and Mercedes, not McLaren and Mercedes, but Ferrari and Mercedes, sorry about that. The battle between Ferrari and Mercedes for P2 in the constructor standings. A little bit about that, we'll talk about that. But now we will start with Max Verstappen's resurgence, actually Red Bull's resurgence, because Yuki Tsunoda is also performing well, and his chances at securing the 2025 World Championship and making it 5 in a row. So the first thing we need to understand is that it is just mathematically possible. We still don't know how much of a pace and performance advantage Red Bull has compared to McLaren's, or should I say Max Verstappen's Red Bull has compared to the McLaren's. Singapore track is going to be critical in answering that question. If Red Bull are competitive in Singapore, so that Verstappen is at least fighting to be on the front row in in the qualifying sessions, or Verstappen is genuinely having pace to challenge or keep up with the McLarens and finishes in the top 3 or whatever. If the Red Bull RB21 is competitive in Singapore, then game on. Because then it is highly possible, because the McLaren drivers will take points from one another, and Max Verstappen is going to be the beneficiary. Because the immediate rivals for world title for Piastri and Norris are them each other. It's not Max Verstappen. Obviously, the papaya rules, they'll try to cover Max Verstappen. But if RB21 performs well in Singapore, which is a medium to high downforce track, the temperature is high, there's a lot of corners, unforgiving corners, it's a street circuit, and traditionally they were not that dominant here. Like last year, for example, Lando Norris won from pole positions, and the year before that, in 2023, which was Max Verstappen's Formula One season, he didn't win in Singapore. So if you consider all of these details, the Singapore Grand Prix is very important in deciding whether Verstappen has a genuine shot at the title. I'm not, right now, I don't believe on either side of the conversation, because some people say yes, he has a shot, and other people say no, it's too far away. There is nothing much to talk about. That's why people are talking about it. But Singapore is going to answer a lot of questions. And the reason is very simple. Max Verstappen has now 3 back-to-back victories, one of them in GT3 and 2 of them in Formula 1 in 3 consecutive race weekends. Big shout out to him. Today is also his birthday, 30th September. Happy birthday, Max. And coming off of the back of 3 wins, you are the ultimate racing driver. You dominated in 2 tracks where Red Bull was supposed to be okay. Monza, you can still say that, okay, Red Bull is good for high-speed corners, but he won by 19 seconds from the McLarens. In Azerbaijan, in Baku, lot of turns, windy conditions, Red Bull typically struggles with balance. He still won by 14 seconds or something from George Russell, and George's pace was good. Yes, he was a little bit sick, but it was good. Now, obviously, another test track, Singapore Grand Prix, and I think Verstappen is going to be in the mix, and he will be in the mix for the title. Not for the title, but for the win in Singapore. So that's the first thing we need to look forward to. That's the first reason why we need to look forward to the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix, is Max Verstappen's resurgence to fight for the 2025 Drivers' Championship is back on. And also, another interesting thing, Red Bull has 4 drivers on the grid, and right now Yuki Tsunoda is performing as well. So if Yuki and the other two Racing Bulls drivers get in the way of the McLaren drivers and impede them during qualifying, or get ahead of them and block them, or like whatever, maybe Yuki Tsunoda does a kamikaze move on Oscar Piastri, whatever, anything can happen. Right now, there are 4 drivers ready to go from Red Bull to disrupt the flow of McLaren. So that's the first thing. That's the first reason. The second reason is Oscar Piastri needs to respond. He needs to show that he still got it. He needs to prove to the people that the mistakes that happened in Azerbaijan were like a one-off mistake, and he's not really crumbling under the pressure of trying to win a world championship. And for that, he is going to be under a lot of pressure in Singapore, which is not the best track to go to if you are under pressure. You need kind of like an easy, free-flowing track with a bit of runoff area. But in Singapore, if you make a mistake, you're fucked. The margins of error are too small. And right now, even though Verstappen is 69 points behind Oscar Piastri, which is nice, even though Verstappen is 69 points behind, Piastri is definitely thinking, holy shit, if anyone can beat me, it's him. He's definitely thinking that. And also, another interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, Oscar Piastri made so many mistakes in Azerbaijan in Baku Street Circuit, the previous race, because he was under pressure. If you remember, in the Italian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen won dominant victory by 19 seconds. He lost points to Norris in Monza. Then Piastri comes like after losing points to Norris and Monza because of a team's mistake. The team fucked up Lando Norris's pit stop and they had to swap again, and then Piastri lost like 3 points. It is what it is. Then he goes to Azerbaijan. From Friday, he is not comfortable with the car. He is not finding the right balance. He is hitting the barriers here. He's touching the tire barriers or whatever it is. He's running wide here, running wide there. He's not getting good lap times. He's locking up into corners. He's having to use the escape routes. That happened on Friday. On Saturday, he became a bit too greedy, and he's like, in his mind, he's like, you know what? Verstappen won. I lost points to Lando in the previous race. Right now, I must capitalize. And he pushed extremely hard during the qualifying session, even though he has zero confidence on the car through the practice sessions. Ended up putting the car into the barrier, qualified P10. Then the race begins, and this is the most interesting part, right? In Azerbaijan, the race begins right in front of Oscar Piastri. There is Lando Norris. I think Piastri was P9. He lined up P9 on the grid or something, or I think it was P9, whatever it is. Piastri, and ahead of Piastri was Lando Norris, and in pole position there was Max Verstappen. So Piastri in his head is doing the math. He's like, if I do a good enough start, I can overtake Norris right at the beginning, and then I'm just going to keep him behind for the remainder of the race. I will lose some point to Max Verstappen, but right now it's critical that I cover Lando Norris. I am lucky that Norris didn't qualify much higher because, he's a bottle job. Every time there's an opportunity, Lando always makes sure that he throws it away. So Oscar is thinking, starting on the grid in Azerbaijan, that if I overtake Norris at the start of the race, there is no way this motherfucker can catch me. And Verstappen is on pole. I will lose some points to him. I have a healthy buffer to Verstappen. Fuck that. I'll make a comeback in the next race. Right now, Norris is important. Drops the clutch too early at the race start. Then goes to anti-stall. Boom, P19. At the Azerbaijan Grand Prix race start. And so far, all of the mistakes he has done happen under pressure because he's getting in his head. He is pushing the car when he shouldn't. He has no understanding of how to handle the car in these windy and tricky conditions around the streets of Baku, so he should be taking it easy. You are the championship leader. Even if you finish the race in decent amount of points, just finish the race, don't cause too much damage, it will be okay. You can always make a comeback. But he got desperate and start of the race, drops the clutch, falls back down the order. 4 corners later, I think he crashed in turn 5, yeah. So 4 corners later, in an attempt to pass a Haas, I think it was the Haas of Esteban Ocon, he just sends it around the outside, misjudges the braking point. The tires are too cold at the start of the race, and he's in the barriers. His race is over. That was also another desperate move when he was trying to go around the Haas of Esteban Ocon or whoever that was, and he lost it and he crashed into the fucking barriers. So Oscar Piastri certainly has a lot of pressure on his shoulders and in his mind going into the Singapore Grand Prix, and we are interested in seeing how he's going to respond to that. He right now is not that worried about Lando, because if there is a driver who Oscar can easily beat, so far he knows that, okay, Lando is beatable. He can beat him. Even on an off weekend like Azerbaijan, Lando couldn't pull away, which is very interesting. Papaya Pitwall also made some mistakes during the pit stop of Lando Norris, which also cost Lando some extra points. So Oscar, in his head, he is in a way not that worried about Lando, but he's more worried about losing points to Lando and in that process losing significant points to Max Verstappen. The last thing you want to do is have Max Verstappen a sniff at the World Championship. If Verstappen is dead on, even on points with Oscar Piastri, or like around Oscar Piastri's score in the championship standings, then whatever Max did to Lando in 2024, very aggressive defensive driving, aggressive attacking, Oscar Piastri is going to go through the same thing, and he is not ready for Max. Not yet, at least. So it is critical for Oscar Piastri to make a good comeback in the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. The advantage is that in a night race, McLaren's ability to take care of the tires is going to be even better. But at the same time, there is another team which can steal things away from them, which is Ferrari. So with Ferrari, couple of Racing Bulls, and then the Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda, and then there is what's that guy's name? Lando Norris. All of these external people or elements can come in and impede Oscar Piastri's progress in Singapore. And if he doesn't do a good enough job of qualifying on Saturday, at least he should put it on the front row. Even if he loses points to Max Verstappen in Singapore, which is looking unlikely, I think Verstappen at best can expect a P3. Piastri has to win. Piastri has to win. It needs to be a statement victory so that he needs to at least pull away from Lando. Even if he doesn't pull away from Max Verstappen, he needs to pull away from Lando. So that's the second reason why we must see and tune in for the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. And the third thing is Scuderia Ferrari versus Mercedes for P2 in the constructor standings. So recently, after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Mercedes overtook Ferrari in the constructor standings. George Russell's phenomenal podium. Kimi Antonelli delivered a much needed P4. He was under pressure from Toto Wolff. Toto gave him a little bit of tough love, said that his performance was shit. He used the word underwhelming, but what he actually meant is that Kimi's performance has been shit. And Kimi, under that pressure, performed well. So great job to Mercedes. But in Singapore, I think they're going to struggle a little bit because of the temperature. I mean, the cockpit temperature is high, and Singapore is a track that usually favors Mercedes less. I mean, I don't remember the last time where they had a dominant performance. I think in 2017, Lewis Hamilton won there, but that's because both of the Ferraris and Max Verstappen had a crash. I don't hope, but if a similar type of crash happens where both of the McLaren drivers get taken out of the race by Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull and Max Verstappen goes on and wins the race, it's going to be funny as fuck. Either way, the point that I'm trying to make is, let's talk about Mercedes versus Ferrari for P2 in the constructor standings. Overall, I will give the advantage to Mercedes because they're a more professional team. But in Singapore, I will give the advantage to Ferrari. Because traditionally, this track has suited them well and they have been competitive here. But when you say that Ferrari are going to be good at a certain track, you also need to think that what possibly can go wrong in that race, right? Because it's been a while since Ferrari have screwed their drivers, whether it is through strategy or car setup or the tires or a slow pit stop or some kind of mechanical unreliability. In Azerbaijan, they screwed Lewis Hamilton by fitting in the soft tires instead of the medium compound tires, which was a better qualifying tire, I think, in Q2. That's where Lewis Hamilton got knocked out. He was aiming to go for a podium in that race, and the Ferrari had pace for that. But either way, they screwed Hamilton in qualifying in Baku, and in Singapore, anything can happen. Now, the good thing about this is that Ferrari already had a bad weekend, which means this weekend is supposed to be a little bit good, and then the next race after Singapore is going to be bad again. This is like the typical Ferrari cycle, but at the same time, overall, if you look at professionalism and competitiveness, the Germans have it under control over the Italians. I mean, let's just keep it real. Kimi Antonelli is now back on the grind. George Russell has now recovered from his illness. Lewis Hamilton has just lost his best friend and one of the superstars from the paddock. So if you put all of these things together, the only good horse that Ferrari has is Charles Leclerc at this point, who is not going through any kind of emotional turmoil. And I don't know how efficient he is going to be in carrying Ferrari. But that's not why I am interested in the battle between Mercedes and Ferrari. The reason why I'm interested in the battle between Mercedes and Ferrari, because in the path of beating each other, they will get in the way of the McLaren boys, and it's going to affect the championship dynamics. I hope it helps Max Verstappen, because otherwise this title fight is as boring as possible. We are almost reaching the last leg of the season. I think there are 7 races to go. After that, I think after Singapore, there are 2 triple headers, one in the Americas, and the last one in the Middle East. So we are almost at the end of the season, and nobody gives a fuck about Piastri versus Norris. So I need the Ferrari drivers and the Mercedes drivers, who are going to be relatively uncompetitive, but I'm in for a huge surprise in Singapore. So I guess we will see how that pans out. So stay tuned. Not stay tuned. I mean, do join in and watch the Singapore Grand Prix. I'll be live streaming it on my channel, so feel free to join in. Otherwise, don't. I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and stay awesome.